Welcome to our 2026 webinar series, America 250. As we honor our nation's semi-quincentennial, we will focus on securing financial independence for American families. Whether it be long-term care, disability, annuities, or life, insurance is all we do. And we look forward to providing comprehensive knowledge of these valuable financial instruments to assist you in best serving your clients. In today's presentation, we will explore the core components of underwriting, compare traditional and modern underwriting paths, and examine how innovation continues to shape the underwriting process. This webinar is being recorded and will last 50 minutes. You must be logged in the full 50 minutes to receive CFP credit. Please be sure to ask questions as you have them by typing them into the questions box. We will answer all questions as best we can. If we do not get to your question today, you will receive a response by email. The webinar will be posted to our website within 24 hours. Today's presenter joined LLIS in 2015 as a case manager and assumed the role of supervisor of the new business team in June of 2024. Here to present on underwriting is Misha Brennan.
Hey, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. And then now by the end of this webinar, you're going to be able to identify the key underwriting risk factors that underwriters look at, the medical and the non-medical. You'll be able to distinguish between traditional full underwriting, automated, and accelerated underwriting paths. And then we're also going to examine technology's advancements and how it's influencing underwriting now and what's in the near future to come. So since our country just celebrated its 250th birthday this summer, I thought it would be fun to start by looking at one area where the United States has truly been a world leader. That's life insurance underwriting. Over the past century, the United States life insurance companies have made significant investments in medical research, mortality studies, and underwriting innovation. These efforts have helped position the United States at the forefront of longevity analysis, risk classification, and life insurance underwriting practices. Many of the underwriting innovations developed in the United States have gone on to influence life insurance practices around the world. Countries such as Canada, the United Kingdom, and even Australia have adopted underwriting approaches that now closely resemble those that we use here in the United States, including the multiple preferred risk classes and the increasing use of digital data sources. As I just mentioned, the United States leads in risk classification, so let's take a look at the approval classifications that are offered. Now, I like to think of underwriting classes as buckets. The insurance company has predetermined conditions that you must meet in order to fit into that bucket. And there are also predetermined premiums associated with these classifications. And that allows us to quote the different companies. We also have the underwriting guidelines for the different companies so that we can accurately quote. So here we have Preferred Plus, Preferred, and Standard Plus. Now these are individuals that have very good health, maintain, maintain healthy lifestyle habits, and they have minimal risk factors. So they have favorable risk profiles. They have longer than average life expectancy. And this is what qualifies them for the most favorable premium rates. Then we have standard. Standard indicates to the insurance company that the applicant presents an average level of risk based on their overall health, lifestyle, and medical history. This is the most common approval class, and it reflects an individual with an average life expectancy. Here we have table ratings. It's for those with a higher risk factors, used primarily for ongoing long-term increased mortality risk. So then with a table rating, you have a base premium plus the rating. So a base premium plus, for example, 25% rating. Some examples of what could potentially cause a rating would be build, obesity, and then maybe chronic medical conditions, some cancer histories, things along that line. Now, while they face higher premiums, they're still provided that needed coverage that offer that financial protection that they need. And depending on the insurance company, there's usually between 10 to 15 different table ratings. And remember, these are people that are at a higher risk to the insurance company. On the slide, we show flat extras. Now, flat extras are used when an applicant has a unique risk, a specific risk, such as aviation or some type of hazardous hobby. Every once in a while, we see it with a certain medical condition. So there's an additional premium. With a flat extra, there's an additional charge. So it's typically $1,000 of coverage per the face amount that they're applying for. And I'm going to go into some case studies with this a little bit later on so that you can see how this flat extra works. But typically we're going to see this maybe if they do some deep sea scuba diving or wreck diving, just your more hazardous occupations, things of that nature. So within all of these approval classes, we have male and female rates. Men pay more for life insurance than women because women have a longer life expectancy. But women will pay a lot more for disability and long-term care insurance. There's also smoker and non-smoker rates. Smoker rates for life insurance is usually about 3 times the premium of a non-smoker. So now that we've talked about the underwriting classifications, we're going to go give an overview of what underwriting is, discuss the underwriting paths, full underwriting, accelerated underwriting, and automated underwriting. And then we'll talk about the future and technology's role in underwriting. So, underwriting is assessing and classifying the degree of risk the insured represents to the insurance company. The underwriter will review a lot of information about the client and decide whether to accept or decline the risk. The higher the risk, the higher the premium. Now, most people assume that if they're healthy, they should automatically qualify for the best underwriting class. And while health is one of the most important factors, it's only one piece of the risk assessment. So, underwriters evaluate 4 key areas when determining risk and eligibility. They look at lifestyle, medical, financial, and the insurable interest and family history. And we're going to go into more detail with each of these. So here's some hazardous activities. Marijuana and alcohol use. Remember, too much of anything is not a good thing. The driving record is looked at, and then foreign travel. So certain sports and hobbies carry an increased risk of injury or death. Underwriters must become familiar with the risk and how to appropriately assess them. So, some common examples of hazardous activities are aviation, scuba diving, mountaineering, and race car driving. And we have questionnaires on each of these, and that's how we're able to gather the needed details. And just because someone participates in a hazardous activity, it does not mean that they will be declined. So if you have a client that's a mountaineer, which is a person that climbs mountains, they're a rock climber, we'll need to gather the details. Are they climbing in a local inside rock climbing gym in the AC? Or are they actually climbing mountains? If they're scaling the sides of mountains, that's a lot riskier. The underwriter will want to know what mountains, what's the elevation, what equipment do they use, what season do they climb at? It's going to be a lot safer on a sunny day at 80 degrees versus January and icy blizzard conditions. So remember, the underwriters are always looking at determining and assessing the risk. So let's take a look at a case study for someone that's a mountaineer. Here we have a 40-year-old woman that's she climbs some pretty challenging mountains. She's applying for 1 million 20-year term, and based on her health, she qualifies for preferred plus rates. Now, if we have the mountain climbing excluded, we're looking at an annual premium of $470 a year. With the mountain climbing covered, that's going to be a $3 per 1,000 flat extra rate. That annual premium would be $3,470 a year. So you can see it makes quite a difference having that mountain climbing covered versus excluded. Now let's take a look at aviation. The underwriter will want to know what kind of pilot. Is your client a student pilot, private pilot, commercial pilot? Underwriters even look at what type of plane they fly. Is it a Cessna, a 747? Is it an experimental craft that they built in their garage? They'll look at how many hours they fly. They look at where they fly. Do they stay local? Do they stay domestic in our country? Or are they doing international flights? So here we have a 50-year-old male applying for 1 million 15-year term at standard non-tobacco rates. If we have the aviation excluded, that annual premium would be $806 per year. Then if the aviation is covered, that would be a $2 per 1,000 flat extra rate. That annual premium is $1,806 per year. Now, with aviation is another good point to how our quote specialist can be really key. There are some carriers that would consider this standard aviation for this client. So they might would still be able to qualify for preferred or standard rates without having this flat extra. So remember, it's very important to encourage your clients to disclose everything up front so that our quote specialist here can accurately quote and recommend the best company for your client to apply with. So now let's talk about marijuana use. Marijuana underwriting has evolved significantly over the past decade, and insurance companies have continued to refine the underwriting guidelines. To make an assessment, we need to know how often, how much. Remember what I said earlier, too much of anything's not good. and what form. There are so many options to stay in time. There's the edibles, there's vaping, there's tea, there's chocolate. So we need to know what form. We need to know the last time used. And we need to know if it's used for recreational or medicinal. If it's for medicinal, we need to know the medical condition that it's being used for. And we get a lot from clients, well, it's legal in my state. Well, remember, the underwriter is weighing risk. Even too much alcohol can be very negative. So they're weighing the risk. And from an underwriter's point of view, they know that it could potentially affect the health. Uh, Let me give you a few examples. Respiratory health, especially what if they have asthma? Smoking marijuana can irritate the lungs. It can contribute to chronic bronchitis or persistent cough. Um, with cardiovascular health, it can temporarily increase your heart rate and your blood pressure, which would be a concern for someone that has existing heart disease, right? There's also substance use disorder. This is when some individuals develop a cannabis use disorder, which it makes it difficult to reduce or even to stop using it. So that's why the underwriters are asking for this detail and looking at the big picture. Insurance companies will order the motor vehicle report, which is your driving history report, as part of the underwriting process. Underwriters look at how safely applicants navigate the roads of everyday life. When reviewing a driving record, underwriters look at a few key factors. Speeding tickets. Have you had one speeding ticket, or have you had 10 speeding tickets? They look at fault accidents, the same thing. Have you had one or multiple? With DUIs, how long ago was it? Was it when you were in college and you're now in your 50s? And how many DUIs? Same with the driver's license suspensions. When was it? Why did it happen? How often has it happened? You know, the risk assessment always goes back into the detail. Now, if one of your clients has had one speeding ticket, they're fine. Nothing for them to worry about. It's just if they've had multiple speeding tickets in a short period of time, then that client's considered risky. The underwriter's going to look at it as they're more likely to take on other risk. Another factor underwriters evaluate is foreign travel. Where are you going? How long? What's the purpose? Now, if you're just going on a family vacation to Paris, that's going to be, of course, a lot safer than if you're going for several weeks on a mission trip to a rural village in Botswana. In the Botswana case, are there any health concerns? Could you be exposed to any diseases like malaria? Are there any civil unrest in that area? Now, the U.S. Department of State issues travel advisories, levels 1 through 4. 1 and 2 are usually okay from an underwriting perspective. But when we get into level 3 and a level 4, that's typically when we see an insurance company says, let's postpone this. We'll wait till that trip's completed, then we'll resume underwriting because the risk is just too great. Um, and it's constantly changing. We saw with the Bahamas earlier this year due to crime, they upped their travel advisory with the Bahamas. We've seen that in Mexico, where there was a point where we ran into where insurance companies and for certain areas in Mexico wanted to wait until that trip was completed because the the crime had gone up to where they just didn't feel like it was safe. Um, About a week ago, I saw even Turks and Caicos moved up to a level 2 because of crime. So it's constantly moving. Our quote specialists here do a great job of keeping an eye on that and can help advise your clients on that. As part of the medical underwriting, the insurance company may order an exam. Now, your clients may say, why me? We get that a lot. It could be their age. Anyone 50 and older just has a higher chance of it triggering an exam. It could be the face amount that they're applying for that could trigger it. Also, just a simple prescription medication like a cholesterol medication can trigger an exam being required. Now, sometimes clients ask us, well, will it cost anything? No, it does not cost the client anything. If the insurance company decides to order an exam in order to make an approval, they're paying for that exam, not the client. And then now some helpful hints for your client on how to get the best results. Make sure they're well hydrated. They need to get a good night's sleep. It will help them get the best lab results if they can fast for like 6 to 8 hours. Um, Sometimes the exam companies will tell them not to fast, but you will always get the best lab results if you fast for 6 to 8 hours. Then, of course, limit high salt and high cholesterol foods for a good 24 hours before the exam. And everyone has a pass for any kind of intense workout for a solid 24 hours before the exam. An intense workout right before an exam can make protein show in the urine. And the underwriter does not have a way of knowing, is there a kidney issue or did they exercise too intensely before the exam? And we share all of these tips on how to get the best lab results with your clients when an exam is ordered. So yeah. Now, underwriters will also run a prescription database check on all applicants. A prescription database report shows prescribed medications going back 5 years. The report will also show the date it was prescribed, the quantity, the dosing instructions, the doctor's name, and it'll often even include if the doctor has a specialty, it'll include that on this report. Now, what helps me remember with prescription medications is they're coded red, yellow, and green, like a traffic light. So with your red, that's going to be like your chemotherapy medications, your AIDS treatment medications. These are medications that are more likely to result in a decline. Your yellow medications are typically what we see with ongoing conditions. So anxiety, depression, diabetes, high blood pressure. These are your yellow medications. And then there's green. Now, your green medications are going to be like an antibiotic that was prescribed 6 months ago or birth control pills. Not a concern. And I do want to point out, do not have a friend or family member write a prescription in your name unless they keep medical records on you. Physicians should not write their own prescriptions. We've seen it underwriting delays because an applicant had medications prescribed by a friend or a family member and they did not have the corresponding medical records. So the underwriter did not have a way to verify the reason for the treatment. So that's why you always need medical records to back up why a prescription was prescribed. Now, medical records. Medical records is typically going to be the longest part of underwriting. The time varies because it really depends on the medical group, the doctor's office, on how quickly they take to process the records. But on average, it typically takes about 30 days. Now, let's use me as an example. Let's say I'm applying for life insurance. I've told LLIS that I have a primary care, and I've told the insurance company I have a primary care. Well, let me show you how it works. So the insurance company is going to send the request to their vendor, and they all have a vendor, like Exam One. Then that request, the authorization, is sent to the doctor's office. Now, sometimes that doctor's office has their own special authorization form. In that situation, that special authorization form is sent to the insurance company. They send it to us. We send it to your client. Those require a wet signature, a hand signature. So your client signs it, sends it back. It's submitted to the doctor's office. Well, now it's become common in our country for doctors to use a copy service. A copy service is a company that specializes in medical records. So now the copy service has received the request, but now they manage medical records for multiple medical groups. So they're busy. So they have to log in the request, they process the medical records, they get them ready to send. The invoice is sent, the insurance company pays the invoice, and now the medical records have finally been sent to the insurance company so that the underwriter can review them. A lot of steps, right? Well, they're reviewing my medical records and they see all kinds of notations about a gastroenterologist, which is a specialist. Oh, I haven't told LLIS or the insurance company anything about seeing this specialist. Well, of course, the underwriter is going to need to order those medical records to find out what in the world is going on. In that situation, now all these steps need to be repeated. So you can see how important it is for your clients to be upfront and tell us everything, because if the insurance company would have known about that gastroenterologist up front, they probably would not have ordered medical records from that primary care. They would have gone straight to ordering the medical records from the specialist. So you see, that would have helped save your client a lot of underwriting time. So we just talked about how long it can take for medical records the traditional way. To give everyone a little hope, let's talk about electronic health records, also referred to as EHRs or DHRs. With electronic health records, this is probably one of the biggest advancements we've seen in life insurance underwriting. Instead of waiting weeks or even sometimes months to get records the traditional way, with electronic health records, they're typically received in 1 to 2 days. The underwriters that I've spoken with predict that in the near future, electronic health records could be used in as many as 70% of the cases. What they're now starting to receive is improving quickly. They're starting to include more details of what an underwriter needs. So this means that the insurance company won't have to order records that long traditional way like they do a lot of times today. Also, there's hope that if they get enough detail, it might potentially help waive exams being required. Let me give you a quick example. With electronic health records, they've often been able to see that labs were ordered, but not be able to see the results. So once more detail is included, let's say we have a client that has diabetes. Well, if they can see the history of the A1C, see that that client's being compliant with medication, doing a good job with keeping that A1C well maintained and in control, then that has the potential. They don't need to order those medical records. They don't need to order that exam to check that A1C. So we're very, very excited about that. Now, I have been pushing them. What do they mean by near future? They're not sure, but hopefully, I would love for us to see it as soon as next year, but I'm not sure if I'm being too optimistic, but at least we know even more advancements are coming. So I'm really excited about that. Now, we often receive comments from clients that say, if my doctor is not concerned about my cholesterol, why is the insurance company? There is a difference between clinical medicine and insurance underwriting. With clinical medicine, doctors have the luxury of treating their patients over a long period of time, and they can adjust their treatment as needed. Unlike doctors, an underwriter has a very small window of opportunity to evaluate a client's medical condition and decide based on that information the most likely outcome. The underwriter must account for what could occur over the next 10, 20, or even 30 years. And depending on, if they have a 30-year policy, that underwriter is put in the position of trying to say, okay, what might happen in the next 30 years? And remember, an underwriter cannot change their mind in the future once that policy is in force and active. In other words, your doctor is treating the patient. The underwriter is assessing risk. And unlike your doctor, the insurance company's on the hook for $3 million if that's what your client is applying for. So, of course, they're going to be more strict than the doctor. Now, as we just discussed, an underwriter will look at things differently from a doctor. So let's look at this case study of a client that has cholesterol readings of 225, and they should be under 200. His total cholesterol over HDL, which is the cholesterol ratio, is 4.7. It should be under 5.0. So you can see here with company A, they would approve him at preferred rates because his total cholesterol is over 220. Now with company B, they would also approve him at preferred rates since his ratio is 4.7, which is over their limit of 4.5. Now, Quest Diagnostics says that a ratio should be under 5, which this client's is. But with this particular company, they're saying that if you want preferred plus, your ratio needs to not just be normal, it needs to be low. So, have you ever wondered if an insurance company shares information with one another? They do. The MIB is the Medical Information Bureau, which is an insurance database. Whenever you apply for life, disability, long-term care, or even health insurance, your name goes into the database. It is comprised of member companies who participate by reporting insurance activity and medical history to the MIB database. The MIB discloses reported details to the other insurers. Now, the MIB does not contain medical records. Instead, the participating insurance companies share a standardized code that will alert underwriters to information. So let me give you a few examples. There's a code for aviation, a code for skydiving, a code for nicotine use, a code for cancer history or heart disease. Now, there's two main purposes of the MIB. The first one is to protect against insurance fraud. If someone has applied for life insurance 6 months ago and received smoker rates, they quit and they're applying now with a new company. With the new company on the application for that question, have you ever used nicotine? They've said no. Well, that MIB is going to alert that new company, hey, they received smoker rates just 6 months ago. So that's how it helps, or one way it helps to protect against fraud. Second reason is to make sure someone is not overinsured. Let's use me as an example. Let's say I'm applying for $1 million with 6 different insurance companies to get the best offer. Now remember, shopping for quotes is a great idea, but applying for with multiple companies at the same time is not a great idea. Each company will be able to see each other's application, and technically, I could place all 6 policies in force, but I don't financially qualify for that amount. It also looks like someone may be trying to hide something, like they're hoping one of the 6 companies it won't catch something. So let us be your personal shopper. It's okay to get as many quotes as you want, but then have your client apply with the one company that best suits their needs. The MIB helps reduce fraud, as I mentioned. So, one growing challenge for insurance companies is called synthetic identity fraud, sometimes referred to as ghost identities. The bad elements in the world are they'll sometimes combine real information and fabricated information to create a synthetic identity. Or sometimes they'll just steal the identity of someone who is deceased. Then they try to obtain life insurance, and they will later submit a fraudulent death claim through a fake beneficiary using an accomplice, hoping the fraud goes undetected. The MIB database helps to catch this type of fraud and helps detect by they they're alerted if like several applications are submitted in a very short period of time. Remember, insurance fraud is not a victimless crime because the cost is ultimately shared by all of us by higher premiums. So, financial underwriting is another important part of the life insurance application. For your clients, the purpose of life insurance is typically going to be income replacement. For income replacement, the amount of the death benefit they qualify for is a multiple based on the client's age and current annual income. For example, if someone's making 25,000 a year, they cannot apply for $20 million of life insurance. They would be worth more dead than alive. Then there's homemakers or the stay-at-home parents. They used to be limited to being able to only apply for 500,000, but it's become pretty common for them to be able to apply up to 1 million as long as their spouse has at least that amount in force. Then there's estate protection. Now, this is the amount of the death benefit allowed is based on the client's net worth and the estimated estate taxes that will need to be paid. Then we have business insurance. It's based on the value of the business plus the percentage you own. And then there's also key man, which is a multiple of your salary. So let's say I'm part owner of LLIS. So Mark and I both own LLIS, 50% each. And let's say it's worth 2 million. Then we could both apply for 1 million each. However, if we tack on some key man within that same policy, we might be able to get that face amount up to 1.5 million each. Then we have family history. So underwriters review family medical history because certain conditions can have a hereditary component and may indicate an increased risk for future health issues. In most cases, the primary focus is on the parents and siblings. Underwriters look for a history of or diagnosis or early death from conditions such as heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, and kidney disease, particularly if they occurred at younger ages. Now, for long-term care insurance, a history of Alzheimer's disease or other forms of dementia in a parent may affect the amount of coverage that they can apply for, or even with some carriers, if there's a family history of Alzheimer's or dementia, we cannot, they cannot apply with that carrier. But again, that's where our quote specialists come in. They'll be able to recommend the company that will work for your client. So here's a quick recap. Underwriters, when weighing the risk, look at 4 categories: lifestyle, medical, financial, and family history. So now let's talk about technology and the 3 main underwriting paths. So there's full underwriting, which means it's going to take probably 2 to 3 months for the underwriting process. They're definitely going to have to complete an exam. They're going to have to order medical records. And back in the day, there was only full underwriting, right? Well, now we have accelerated underwriting, which is the potential for the underwriter to potentially waive the exam and or waive the medical records. And now we have automated underwriting. So no human involved. It's an algorithm. The insurance company has programmed their system with their underwriting guidelines, and it's making an instant approval. So let's take a closer look at this. So we want all of your clients to go through underwriting as quickly as possible. So we submit the same way. We submit a ticket, so an electronic ticket. The client will need to complete either a phone interview or an e-interview with the insurance company. They'll run those standard reports, the prescription database, the MIB, the motor vehicle record. The underwriter will review this information and determine which path to send the client down. They could say they have enough information and we get an approval. Or they could say, well, we need to order an exam and or order medical records, gather that little bit more detail before we can make an approval. Then there's the automated underwriting that was rolled out for the first time probably about 3 years ago. So remember, we submit the same way. We submit the electronic ticket. The client completes either a phone interview or an e-interview with the insurance company. They run those standard reports that they run on all applicants, the prescription database, the driving, the MIB. But now a computer determines the offer. No human involved. We get an instant approval. As an example, last week, I submitted a ticket to a life insurance company at 3:05 p.m. I received the approval at 3:56. This insurance company issues their policies really fast, and this client was right on it. This policy that I submitted at 3:05 was active and enforced by 4:50. Less than 2 hours. And that's probably the quickest I've ever seen, but that just goes to show you how quick this automated truly can be. Sounds great, right? Well, let's talk about the pros and cons. So let's look at the pros first. Quick approval. Who wants to wait 2 to 3 months for an approval when we can get a fast, quick, instant approval, right? The approvals may be better than quoted. We quote conservatively. There's consistent underwriting because there's no human error. Less requirements for the client and the insurance company. Clients not having to complete the exam or wait for medical records. The insurance company's not having to pay for an exam, not needing to pay for medical records. It allows the underwriters to focus on their more complicated cases. And there's a shortage of underwriters in this country right now. Sounds great. Well, let's look at some cons. There's fraud. No one's seeing the person. So there's a concern from the insurance company about increases in fraud. Approvals may be worse than quoted, and it's difficult to get the reason. One common one that we get is due to prescription and or medical claims database. You're like, what? Is it a prescription medication? Is it something in a database? That doesn't tell us, right? So the client may need to order their consumer report, and they're difficult to read. It's not like the answers just jump out. They can send it to us. We're happy to take a look at it. But sometimes it's really hard for us to figure out. So that's definitely a downfall with these quick approvals. We're also seeing more and more approvals are based upon a score. So let's take a look at that. So let's go over an example of a scoring system for approvals. So this person has a blood pressure of 125/87, slightly elevated, but still could be preferred plus. Cholesterol a little elevated at 225. It should be under 200, but again, looking at the underwriting guidelines, it should be preferred plus. They have one speeding ticket. Okay. Slightly overweight. Back 2 years ago, this client would have been approved at Preferred Plus. Now the insurance companies are looking at it as if they have 6 dings against them. So they might only be approved at Preferred or Standard Plus. But honestly, with elevated blood pressure, cholesterol, and the build, they are all risk factors for cardiovascular disease. So maybe they should be approved at Preferred Plus, but it makes it more difficult to quote because if you look at these individually at the underwriting guidelines, it looks like Preferred Plus. So here's a quick recap. There's 3 paths for underwriting. There's the full underwriting. There's the accelerated underwriting, where there's the potential that the underwriter may waive the exam and or medical records. And there's automated underwriting, no human involved, quick, instant approval. Technological advancements influence underwriting timelines. Technology has dramatically changed the underwriting process over the past few years. In many cases, what took months now can take just a few days. The electronic health records that I mentioned is really helping to speed things up. There's now the prescription database, artificial intelligence that can make the instant decisions. So we've come a long way. We've come from everything being 100% paper applications that had to be snail mailed to the client to digital applications, automated workflows. So we're, with technology's help, definitely heading in the right direction. So let's take a quick look at hot topics. There's post-issue underwriting, GLPs, which I'm sure we all hear about, Fitbits or wearable devices, the Grail blood test, and then there's genetic testing. So with post-issue underwriting, All life insurance companies have a 2-year contestability period, which means if you were to die within the first 2 years of your policy being active, that insurance company has the right, and they do, order medical records. If they find that there was a material misrepresentation on the application, they will not pay a claim. So let's say someone has a heart attack, they recover, they apply for insurance, they do not disclose that they had a heart attack. They're one of those lucky ones that went through and received an automated instant approval. Policy's active, 6 months later, they have a second heart attack and they pass away. Well, when that insurance company orders those medical records, they're going to see, hey, that client didn't disclose that heart attack 6 months before they applied. So in that situation, they're not going to pay that claim. We're also seeing more where with these instant approvals, the insurance company will order medical records after that policy's in force. They're just wanting to make sure that their automated underwriting is working correctly. But if they find out that the client made material misrepresentations, that insurance company can rescind the policy. We've had just a few, not a lot, over the past few years where that happened. And we're not talking about minor things like, oh, I forgot to tell them about an antibiotic or annual visit with my primary care. It's substantial, like maybe someone's been a smoker for 30 years and said that they never used nicotine. So it's that big things that are not disclosed that can really mess someone up and have a policy rescinded or a claim not be paid. Now, GLPs, every time I turn on my TV, we see commercials or ads for these weight loss medications. There's Ozempic and Wegovy and Zepbound, and the list goes on. And, we're always hearing about the benefits, the risks, the side effects. So how do underwriters view them? The medication itself is not the primary concern. Instead, underwriters focus on weight stability. When someone has lost a significant amount of weight, so 10 pounds or more in a 12-month period, statistics show most people put that weight back on, or at least half of it. So the way the underwriters at the insurance companies look at it is they put half back when they're looking at their bill charts. For example, if an applicant lost 40 pounds in 12 months, the underwriter will use 20 of that pounds of that weight loss when evaluating the application with their build. Why? Because with life insurance, they're looking at long-term mortality risk. And they know that unfortunately most people put on at least half of that weight back. So they're not worried about the medicine. They're looking at weight stability. So with Fitbits, Apple Watches, and other wearable devices, they're so common. I'm sitting here with a Fitbit on right now. So we're starting to get more and more questions. Will insurance companies one day use this information during underwriting? The answer's probably not. In fact, we only know one insurance company, or at least one that we're aware of, that currently uses wearable data as part of the underwriting process. One topic that continues to come up when underwriters discuss wearable technology is data integrity. If wearable data could qualify someone for a lower premium, how can the insurance company be confident that the data actually belongs to the applicant? Because then it becomes very tempting to have maybe your spouse who's a runner wear that wearable device for you. Or you might have a family dog running, you could hook it up to their collar, running and let it run around the backyard instead of you doing the running. And remember, life insurance is a long-term financial commitment. So that's why underwriters need to have confidence that the information they're using is accurate. Now, will that change in the future? Time will tell. But right now, when I talk to the underwriters, they're definitely not ready to consider using wearable devices. So Gallery is a test by a company called Grail. It's a blood test that screens for more than 50 types of cancer that's generating a lot of interest in the life insurance industry. And it's the big, like breast cancer, pancreas, ovarian, colon cancers that this blood test can pick up. So, some insurance companies are exploring the possibility of using this test maybe for their larger face amount cases, maybe for like your clients that are applying for 15, 20 million, those higher face amounts. So they're talking about maybe as part of the exam testing using this blood test. They're also talking about using it for after that higher face amount policy is active as a complementary benefit or a perk where the client can choose to potentially use that. Because remember, they want that insured to stay healthy. And if you can catch cancer early, your chances are a lot better. Genetics are a big thing, with the popularity of 23andMe and Ancestry.com. Doctors are ordering genetic testing more. Just keep in mind, if it becomes part of your medical records, when they receive those medical records, the insurance company will see those results. So keep that in mind. And let me hurry here. I'm sorry, we're running short on time. So key things to remember. Standard is what most people are approved at, and that means average life expectancy. Honesty is always best. Encourage your clients to be upfront with us. Our quote specialists are wonderful. When they are given all of the information, they are able to help recommend the right company. Do not submit multiple applications, only submit one. And remember, full underwriting is going to be 2 to 3 months. Thank you for attending. Just real quickly, our next free webinar is September 15th. Brian Ciccarelli will be giving that one, so keep a lookout for that. Our next conference is going to be the ACP, September 15th and 17th. Last but definitely not least, I want to give a shout out. We are bringing back the Academy. Come see us. We want to spend some time with you. You can get some CE credits. It's going to be January 27th and 29th, 2027 on the beach in Clearwater. I know a lot of you live where it's really, really cold. Come down, enjoy some nice weather, and we're looking forward to seeing you. So let's take a look at the questions. Let's see here. Are there policies that waive coverage for medical conditions, like waiving a stroke, heart attack, if someone has heart disease? Unfortunately, no, because remember the insurance company is looking at risk because they're the one that's going to have to pay that death claim. So no, unfortunately, they do not waive any medical conditions. I know you might have heard that there's this thing in Europe where it's the right to forget for cancer. Um, I don't think that will ever come to the United States because that's in Europe, you're seeing lower face amounts, so there's less risk to the insurance company. But no, unfortunately, right now, there's not an insurance company that will waive a medical condition like a stroke, heart attack, or heart disease. But a very good question. Very good question. All right, we're out of time. I've enjoyed it. If anyone has an additional question, send it to me and I will respond to you privately. And again, thank you for attending. Bye.